Hello, my sewing friends. I'm Jen. Welcome to my sewing room, and this is Fridaysews, where we talk about sewing and life. If you want, you can click on the hashtag in the title down here, and you can find all kinds of people who also do Fridaysews, and they talk about sewing and life too. You might find somebody you really like. So let's get straight to the sewing, shall we? I did not do any sewing this past week, but I did some sewing last week. And on Tuesday of last week, I made this. I love this so much. This is a vintage pattern from 1991. It is McCall's 5606, and I made view B. And if you don't want to go hunting this down, let me give you an option. This is currently in the books. This is McCall's 7816. And this black sweatshirt you see is essentially the same thing. It's a little different in that the shoulder isn't as dropped, which is probably better. It does have cuffs and it has a bottom band, but so leave those off and you'll have essentially the same thing. I love this so much. And here's why I made it. I live in Florida, and in Florida in the winter, we have about maybe 2 to 4 weeks of winter. And winter for Florida is more like it doesn't get up above 70 degrees. It's in the 60s a lot of the time, and at night it gets down to 40 or even 35, maybe freezing. So, you know, it feels cold when you're used to the rest of the year it being 85 degrees and above, or at least 80. Yeah, I get cold. But it's because my blood has thinned. I've only lived here about 6 years, but you know, you get used to it. And believe me, I grew up in the Midwest. I am no stranger to blizzards, sub-zero temperatures. You know, I lived there for, oh gosh, what am I, 64? So 58 years I lived in that kind of climate. I know what winter is. Okay, so I wanted something easy to wear, comfortable, but not sloppy, and warm. This is 100% cotton, and I made it from scraps. I have tried not to save anything smaller than about a yard. And this is left over from a Marcy Tilton dress that I made a couple of years ago. So it was very generously sized. The pattern I have is a small, but it's a men's small. So yeah, that plus the ease that the big 4 companies build into their patterns equaled way too big. So I ended up taking about 6 inches out of either side from the wrist all the way down, and that made a big difference. So yeah, I just love this. I did shorten it because I held up the pattern piece to me and I realized it was going to be way long. Again, men's pattern. So I shortened it by about 4 inches. No, 5 inches, because it was 2.5 and 2.5, you know, when you fold it up on that shorten lengthen line. I didn't shorten the sleeves at all because I like long sleeves. I like really long, and I have long arms anyway. So the ties, the drawstrings are made from some that were given to me in my advent calendar from Maudie Sews. So this calls for 3 yards of fabric, and I was using scraps, and I thought, I laid out this and I thought that is not going to work. But then I realized I had this, and I thought, well, maybe I could just color block it. Now, when I say color block, I did not want like sleeves that were different. I wanted the front to be kind of look like one thing, and then the back to be different. And the hood, based on the amount of fabric I had to be, you know, both, which I kind of like. I had to Tetris out the entire thing. So I want to show you how I did that. So here's how I did it. and it works. This called for 3 yards of fabric. I had maybe 2 and a little bit, but it worked. It just goes to show you that if you are willing to play with it and work it out, you probably can do it with less fabric. Sometimes not, but if you have scraps and you want to turn things odd ways, like put it on the crosswise grain instead of the lengthwise, you can, you just have to get creative. So 2 other things I want to tell you about this, that is that the hood is unlined. It does have a facing here that forms the casing for your drawstring. And other than that, it's unlined. And so for the back, center back seam, what I did was I opened the seam out and pressed it flat, and then I turned under each side of it about 1/4 of an inch, and then I just top stitched it. And I think that gives a really nice finish without having to line it. And so it did not call for a lining, which was great because I didn't have enough fabric. So there's that. And then the other thing I want to tell you is that I use metricine thread. I initially started out sewing it with that narrow zigzag and regular polyester thread. And then I thought, wait a minute, I've got that metricine thread that I got from Wawak. It's made by Gutermann. So if you go to Wawak to look for it, look under the Gutermann thread and you'll find it there. And worked fantastic. I had it in the bobbin and in the needle thread, and it stretches. And so you can stitch with a straight stitch. I love the look of a straight stitch so much more than I like that narrow zigzag. Really, it's difficult to tell the difference if you don't look closely. But, you know, where you have top stitching, like I had a top stitched hem here, I have a top stitched hem here. There's a lot of top stitching on the hood, and I just like that straight stitch better. So that was really helpful, and I would strongly recommend it. Okay, the most notable thing about this, I did not use my seam ripper one time. Not even once. Isn't that amazing? That is like the angels are singing. It was amazing. I always use a seam ripper at one point or another in a project, and I did not on this. I didn't have to. Probably because I didn't just look at the pictures for the instructions. I read the instructions. I would read them through and think, oh yeah, okay. Now, it's not like I didn't know what I was doing because it's essentially a t-shirt with a hood. So I knew what to expect. And with a t-shirt, you just start at the shoulder seams and you work your way down. So it was pretty straightforward, but you know, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I didn't do a line of top stitching that I didn't like or something like that. Not once did I use a seam ripper. This is a very beginner friendly pattern. And so if you went with the McCall's dupe that's currently in the books, it is likely the very same thing. And if you want a little coat for your dog, it's in there too. And joggers. So that's the story of this. And I got it done in an afternoon, no problem. All I have done since is cut out a circle skirt. In this case, it's going to be a handkerchief hem skirt from a tablecloth. Hello. The most difficult thing about something like this is simply to gauge how big you need the opening for your waist. And I based this on my waist, and my daughter, my oldest daughter, had a baby about a year ago. And so she's still losing her pregnancy weight. And so fortunately, I have 2 of these tablecloths. And so I'm going to use this for her. And she also didn't care for the handkerchief hem. And that's only because it's a square, well, it's a rectangular tablecloth. And I thought it might look kind of cool to have, you know, the handkerchief idea. But she wants the rounded circle skirt. So with this, because it needs to be bigger, I could just cut that, maybe I'll do that. I could just cut that opening bigger on the waistline. The only other thing about this too is that she will want side seam pockets. Where normally you would just do the whole thing, like a whole circle like this, I'll have to do half circles and cut them and then put the pockets in, no big deal. So usually it's already hemmed for you, especially if you get a circular tablecloth. Let's move on to life. I didn't get any sewing done this week because last Wednesday, the day after I finished this, my daughter and son-in-law came with my grandson. He is 1. And they took a Disney cruise. And I got the absolute pleasure of getting to be with my grandson. Okay, now let me preface this experience by saying, I have said this before, but I have 5 daughters. I had twins and then I had 3 more daughters. And at one point, my youngest was born in October, and the twins, who are the oldest, did not turn 5 until late January. So I had 5 under 5 for a little while there. And most people say, what were you thinking? Oh, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I don't know. I just had 5 kids. What can I say? So I am not unfamiliar with what it takes to deal with babies on a daily basis. It's been 30 plus years, but I'm not unfamiliar with it. And actually, I'm not unfamiliar with doing a lot of them at the same time. It's like trying to keep ping pong balls underwater or herding cats. So it was challenging, but he is a doll and he's so easy. It's fun to say things like, can you say bubble? Bubble. Bubble. So there was no sewing that was getting done, especially after his mom and dad got home on Wednesday, like 2 days ago. And he had to come and sleep in here. And so there was definitely no sewing getting done. That's okay, because the trade-off was so worth it. So worth it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So we said goodbye to them very early this morning. I was glad to get that time with him. Oh, what a sweetheart. I just covered him in kisses. Hopefully, maybe tomorrow, walk on the beach will be in my future. My husband took me out for Valentine's Day to Carrabba's in the US. That's an Italian restaurant. And I swear those people cannot make anything that doesn't taste to me like heaven. It was so good. I had rigatoni with sausage. Oh my gosh, it was so good. And then we came home and I made my famous nachos, which is a Taco Bell knockoff. And I make a big cookie sheet full. And this time I layered them and it was great. And I do that for my daughter and son-in-law because that's their favorite thing that I make. And then we had cheesecakes from Sam's Club. Oh my goodness. Caramel and cookies and cream. So only about that big though. And yeah, they were so good. So that's life. It's been busy. I'm going to move on to my little bit of Jesus that I throw in every time. If that is not for you, I will see you next week, if not before. And thank you so much for watching. For those of you who love that part or are curious, let me share that with you. This is from Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Boy, isn't that true? I love when people encourage me. I love it when you all encourage me in the comments. You are so gracious and so kind. And I don't think you have any idea how much that encourages me. It makes me think, this is worth doing, what I'm doing. And even sharing these things is worth doing. So encourage one another. Find someone today to encourage, or look for someone encouraging you in a small way. Sometimes that goes right by us and we don't even notice, but yeah, look for that today. Okay, I'll leave it there. And thank you so much for watching. You all know how much I appreciate you. And if you don't know that, I appreciate you so much. I do hope you'll subscribe and become a part of this family. There's a Facebook group. There's another Facebook group. It's all linked in the description box. And I will see you next time.